The World Economic Forum is set to launch 4 new centres for the fourth industrial revolution, one of which will be hosted at the University of Pretoria. The centre will aim to contribute to the advancing of the nation's readiness for the future of global value chains and energy transition. Vice-Chancellor and Principal of the University of Pretoria, Prof Francis Petersen, joins us for this discussion. Professor Petersen, a very good evening to you. Thank you for your time. The University of Pretoria has signed an agreement in efforts to ensure technological process and industrial transformation. What does this agreement signify to you?
Thank you. Good evening. Good evening to the viewers. It signifies that we've got a centre, a national centre in South Africa that is going to be focusing on industrial transformation using 4IR technologies to be able to enhance that transformation with a specific focus on the energy transition and decarbonisation of certain industries, as well as to look at to what extent we could focus on the value chains that trigger advanced manufacturing in South Africa. That, in essence, is what the centre will be focusing on.
And more so, as we know all too well, that South Africa has to grow its heavy manufacturing sector into a global green manufacturing hub that supports its socio-economic development. How will this agreement help to ensure that the country is well positioned to do so?
So the centre is a centre that would work in a collaborative model. It's going to be hosted by the University of Pretoria, but there is also going to be other academic institutions involved, together with government and also the private sector and the industry. We will also include science councils such as MINTEC, the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, NEXA, and various other science councils. So it's entities that can produce new knowledge, which could be applied into these challenges that speaks to the energy transition and how can we help and intensify interventions that take South Africa to net zero. But it also will be a place, what I call a convening place, a place where different stakeholders can come together, and that will also include civil society to talk about these challenges and also to offer potential solutions. Being at a university and involving various other universities in South Africa, it also will allow it to be a sort of a neutral platform where these views could be taken into research projects, into projects where masters and doctoral students could participate in working in a co-created model with other parts of the economy. So it's really to come up with new interventions, but also to work on existing interventions that we could modify, that we could refine, and that we could make more effective.
What are some of those existing interventions?
So, for instance, if you look at energy transition, there are different processes that industries apply to be able to lower their emissions. There's also focus on green hydrogen as a specific intervention that could be used to look at decarbonisation, and there's various others. So we will be focusing on them using expertise that sits either at the University of Pretoria or in other parts of the academic sector, as well as on the science council sector and perhaps in the industry sector, where there are new work that need to be done. Say, for instance, we look at the value chain, whether South Africa is ready to look at a supply chain for advanced manufacturing. We will have to do an assessment. We will have to do an assessment to find out where we are and what interventions is needed to take us to the next step. There might also be policies that we have to work with government to alter, to modify, or to develop to be able to create an enabling environment for these value chains to really take on its own and be implemented. So for me, it is partly to the viewers a place where thought leadership takes place, but also where we work with different sectors, government, the private sector, industry, and also with other universities and science councils to look at existing solutions, refine that, but also to come up with new solutions in the space of energy transition and supply chain development.
So as we look towards advancing readiness, I mean, you talk about this essentially being a neutral platform you're creating. What kind of impact are you aiming for with the centre as you talk about stakeholders and collaborations as you move towards, you know, some of the achievements that you're hoping to look and reflect on?
Well, I think there would be a couple. The one would be to be able to socialize digital technologies in these applications. So to what extent do we enable the adoption of these technologies in the applications of dealing with these particular issues that I talked about? So it is that digital transformation in the public and private sector that we would like to roll out, that we would like to see how we can enhance and increase. And secondly, is to see to what extent we could accelerate in a co-created fashion the interventions that could take South Africa as a whole, together with the industry and the private sector, towards lowering their emissions and towards the net zero target. And thirdly, is also to make sure that we create a space where we learn from one another, but also capitalize on the partnerships, the network, the affiliation that we have with the World Economic Forum. Mm-hmm. And that affiliation brings in itself best practices of about 24 4IR centers across the globe, which we haven't got in South Africa. The only other one is in Rwanda, on the African continent. So we're gonna utilize that those networks, those best practice, contextualize it in a South African environment, because obviously environment differ, and then try to see to in what extent we can enhance these objectives of net zero targets, energy transition, and then also focusing on an effective supply chain for advanced manufacturing.
Very well. Thank you so much for speaking to us this evening as we wrap up our discussion there. Really just speaking to Vice-Chancellor and Principal of the University of Pretoria, Professor Francis Petersen, as the World Economic Forum is set to launch 4 centres for the 4th Industrial Revolution.